June 1966. The Mulsanne Strait stretches 3.5 miles through the French countryside. A blue Ford GT40 screams past at 218 miles per hour, and somewhere in Italy, Enzo Ferrari feels something he has never felt before: fear. The engine making that speed possible wasn't some exotic European masterpiece. It was a cast-iron pushrod V8 derived from the same block Ford used in family sedans. Against Ferrari's hand-built dual overhead cam V12, an engine born from Formula One royalty, this crude American motor had no business being competitive. Yet there it was, winning. The insult came in May 1963. Ford had spent months negotiating to buy Ferrari. Teams of executives had toured the Maranello factory. Lawyers had drafted contracts. Then, at the final moment, Enzo Ferrari walked away. He turned to his secretary and said simply, "Let's get something to eat." The Americans flew home empty-handed, but not before Enzo delivered his verdict. Ford made ugly little cars in an ugly factory. Their executives were worthless. Henry Ford II was not his father. He was merely Henry Ford II. The response from Detroit was immediate and absolute. Henry Ford II gathered his lieutenants and issued a single directive: go to Le Mans, beat his ass. There was one problem. Ford had never built a racing sports car. Ferrari had dominated Le Mans for 6 consecutive years, powered by hand-built V12 engines derived from Formula One technology. 4 overhead cams, fuel injection, 8,000 revolutions per minute. Ford's only high-performance engine was the 427 FE, a cast-iron pushrod V8 originally designed for NASCAR stock cars. The same basic block-powered Ford Galaxy family sedans. Against Ferrari's surgical precision, Ford was bringing a sledgehammer. But sledgehammers, properly wielded, can demolish things that scalpels cannot touch. The engine Ferrari's engineers mocked had been born 8 years earlier as a 332 cubic inch motor for the Edsel. The Edsel, Ford's most embarrassing failure, a car so poorly received it became synonymous with corporate disaster. Yet the basic architecture of that humble engine evolved through the 390, the 406, and finally the 427, finding its purpose not in family sedans, but on the banked ovals of NASCAR. By 1963, the 427 was winning stock car races. By 1965, Ford needed it to win something far more prestigious. The technical disadvantage was severe. Pushrod engines carry additional mass in their valvetrains, limiting how fast they can rev before the components literally fly apart. Ferrari's V12 screamed to 8,000 RPM. The 427 hit a wall at 6,400. In endurance racing, RPM translates directly to speed on the straights. Joe Makura, Ford's lead development engineer, understood the physics perfectly. His engine was fighting with one hand tied behind its back. But displacement creates torque, and torque, delivered relentlessly over 24 hours, creates something no specification sheet can measure. Endurance. Roy Lunn faced the first impossible task. The standard 427 weighed 685 pounds. Stuffing that mass into a mid-engine sports car while maintaining any semblance of handling required brutal surgery. Lunn's team replaced the cast-iron cylinder heads with aluminum, then the intake manifold, then the timing cover and water pump. The oil pan became magnesium. When they finished, The Le Mans 427 weighed 555 pounds, 130 pounds lighter than the block sitting in showroom galaxies. The second problem was survival. A NASCAR race lasts 3 hours. Le Mans lasts 24. Ford's solution was counterintuitive. They made the engine weaker. The 427 was capable of 550 horsepower. Ford detuned it to 485. This allowed the motor to sustain 6,200 RPM for the entire race without grenading itself. Mose Nolan's team bolted the engine to a GT40 transaxle and ran it on a dynamometer for 48 continuous hours, simulating every gear change, every lap, every stress the circuit would inflict. Days before shipping to France, Nowland discovered a problem. Sealant between the block and heads was blowing out, causing oil leaks. His solution cost pennies. He embedded ordinary fishing line into the sealant, creating a dam that held pressure. Fishing line. The fate of Ford's $9 million racing program came down to something you could buy at a hardware store. The exhaust system earned its nickname through sheer visual chaos. Traditional headers run each cylinder bank to its own collector. Ford's engineers did something different. They crossed the tubes, running exhaust from each bank to collectors on the opposite side of the engine. The tangled mass of pipes looked like serpents frozen mid-strike. The bundle of snakes improved exhaust scavenging at high RPM, but its real advantage was consistency. Under sustained load, the 427 breathed evenly, maintaining power output while Ferrari's V12 began to fade. The numbers told the story before the race began. Ford's 427 produced 485 horsepower from 7.0 litres. Ferrari's V12 produced 420 horsepower from 4.0 litres. The GT40 Mach 2 weighed 2,800 pounds. The Ferrari P3 weighed 1,900. On paper, Ferrari's superior power-to-weight ratio should have dominated. But down the Mulsanne Straight, where cars held full throttle for nearly a minute, displacement trumped sophistication. The GT40 hit 210 miles per hour. Ken Miles climbed out after testing and delivered his verdict. "That is the car I want to drive at Le Mans." Ford arrived in France with overwhelming force. 8 GT40 Mach 2s, 100 personnel, 7 spare engines, 21 tons of spare parts. Enzo Ferrari reportedly called it the steamroller. The European press noted he seemed defeated before the race started. Ferrari entered only 3 P3s. Internal politics had fractured his team. His lead driver, John Surtees, would leave for a rival constructor mid-race weekend. The 24 hours that followed were not competitive. All 3 Ferraris retired with mechanical failures. Ford swept first, second, and third, the first American victory at Le Mans since 1921. But the triumph carried darkness. Ken Miles, who had led most of the race, was ordered to slow for a corporate photo finish. A technicality awarded victory to Bruce McLaren instead. 2 months later, Miles died at Riverside, testing the successor J car. The pushrod V8 that made him legendary also powered the machine that killed him. Ferrari's V12 was objectively superior. 4 overhead cams versus pushrods, 8,000 RPM versus 6,400. Fuel injection versus carburetors, aluminum construction versus cast iron derived from sedan engines. By every metric that European engineers valued, the Italian motor represented the pinnacle of racing technology. But sophistication does not win endurance. Endurance races, survival does. The 427's primitive architecture was its greatest weapon. Fewer moving parts meant fewer failure points. Predictable behavior under stress meant engineers could push closer to the edge without falling over it. What Maranello dismissed as crude, Dearborn recognized as unbreakable. Ford won Le Mans 4 consecutive years: 1966, 1967, 1968, 1969. The FIA responded by changing the rules, limiting prototype engines to 3.0 liters, a regulation specifically designed to ban Ford's 7.0-liter monster from competition. Ferrari would not win Le Mans again until 2023, 57 years of silence. The final irony cuts deepest. The engine Enzo mocked came from the same assembly lines that built his customers' daily transportation. A sedan motor modified with aluminum castings and fishing line defeated Formula One technology on the world's greatest stage. Henry Ford, too, had delivered on his promise. He went to Le Mans. He beat Enzo's ass permanently. Enzo Ferrari built engines like sculptures. Henry Ford, too, built them like hammers. In 1966, the hammer won. The 427's legacy isn't just 4 consecutive Le Mans victories. It's the proof that engineering philosophy matters as much as engineering sophistication. That reliability can defeat refinement. That sometimes brute force, applied with precision, tested to destruction, and deployed with overwhelming resources, can humble even the most elegant machinery ever built. Enzo never forgot the sound of those pushrod valve 8 thundering past his broken P3. He spent the rest of his life trying to answer them. He never could.